today we're talking about Nope, because I love it. Nope came out in 2022. It was directed by horror filmmaker Jordan Peele, who proved to be a very talented director with his feature film debut Get Out. Peele has a very distinct style that combines horror and comedy motifs in very effective and non-trite ways. He's also of black ethnicity, and his films often include insightful and original social commentary regarding the black struggle, particularly pertaining to African Americans. After Get Out, which released in 2017, he made the 2019 film Us, which got very mixed reviews for good reason, as it was very ambitious and profound in certain areas but sloppy in others. And finally, in 2022, he made Nope. Nope is easily my favourite of the three, and throughout the course of this video I hope to communicate to you, the viewer, as to why I hold this opinion and why you should hold this opinion too, because it's the true opinion, it's the right one. This is the first Jordan Peele film that I'd consider to be one of my favourites of the last 20 years or so. I loved watching this in the cinema, and the more I study it, the more cool it becomes in my mind. It's wrought with ultra-specific cryptic symbolism as well as expertly crafted suspense. The storytelling is subtle and inherently show rather than tell. It's effortlessly allegorical while never being preachy. It's weird, it's wacky, it's unique. It's definitely not for everybody, and I understand that, but for what it appears to be going for, I think it near enough nails. It's also just ripe for reviewing and deserves a comprehensive deep dive, so that's what I'm here to do.
It's gonna be alright, Angel. We don't deserve the impossible.
This video will be made up of two parts. The first part will be the review, which will cover the technical aspects, the character arcs, and the overall craftsmanship of the storytelling. And the second part will be the analysis segment, which will go into the themes and symbolism, because there's a lot to talk about on that front. It's one of those films that leaves itself open to many different interpretations, so you'll be hearing my take later on in the video. For those of you who know nothing about this film, I'll do you a brief synopsis. It centers around a Hollywood-based, black-owned horse wranglers ranch who discover a strange UFO inhabiting the skies above their ranch, and throughout the movie they go about trying to capture footage of this said UFO. Footage that they might be able to make a lot of money out of, and that's all I'm going to say. That's all you need to know.
You set it up, at least the right way, man, I'm talking rich and famous for life.
Are you ready to start this review? Good, because I certainly am. Let us begin. Full spoilers.
And remember to fucking subscribe.
I'm starting this review off a little differently by first going over some technical aspects, and those technical aspects being the score, soundtrack, and sound design. These are three elements of this film that I specifically enjoyed, and they deserve to be highlighted.
Bad thing when the spirit can get broke.
So you break it.
What I love about the original score is that it evokes the feel of a 1980s mystery adventure film. Despite this being in large part a horror, the score often goes in different and unexpected directions with regards to the kind of tones that it wants to elicit. At times these tones are ones of excitement, wonder and discovery that occur when the characters are deducing the true nature of the alien or devising ways to lure it out into the open.
Oh shit, it's real.
At these times, the film echoes the emotions felt when watching a classic Spielberg film, in particular Jaws or Close Encounters with the Third Kind. These emotions are echoed by not just the score, but the overall film itself. Jaws because in that film there's a lot of screen time dedicated to the main cast of characters planning out how exactly they'll kill the creature. You could even compare the plot beat of them recruiting the rugged documentary filmmaker in Nope to the plot beat of Roy Schneider and Richard Dreyfuss recruiting Robert Shaw in Jaws. Both characters serve very similar functions in their respective narratives, and both plot beats occur at roughly the beginning of the third act.
You know the thing about a shark, he's got lifeless eyes, black eyes like a doll's eyes.
He was a one-eyed, one-horned, flying purple people eater.
And it's similar to Close Encounters because, like in that film, Nope's take on the UFO is classical and typical, yet it still manages to make it iconic and unique in its own way. The decision to partially lean into a Spielbergian tone and mix that in with the typical Jordan Peele style makes this film all the more special as a cinematic experience. It balances and interweaves all of these tones of excitement, adventure, horror, comedy, uncanniness, creepiness, and it does it in a way that is never distracting. The score also veers towards classic Western sensibilities, particularly towards the end of the film where it almost becomes a full-on Clint Eastwood flick. I'm highlighting all this to demonstrate the fact that there are multiple, very contrasting emotions to be felt throughout this film other than just horror and fright. It's a very risky thing to do. It takes a lot of balls to constantly switch gears like this, particularly for Jordan Peele, who is known for his horror. A lot of people went into this film wanting another Get Out, and they get this weird-ass hybrid of a movie that's celebrating all of these different motifs of cinema. Hats off to Jordan Peele, man. The soundtrack of the film is also well utilised. We could commend it for the good music choices, which were indeed cool, but what's more integral is how the diegetic music is used in junction with the horror scenes. So a key thing about the creature is that it essentially acts as an EMP device when it comes within a certain range of electronical equipment. Thus, a visual or audible cue that the creature is near is the power goes out, maybe a light flickers, or the radio starts to distort. These moments are indicators to both the characters and we the audience that we're in danger as the creature is close. Where the soundtrack comes into play is when a lot of the time the characters will have this cool groovy song playing on the car radio, and when the alien hovers over the vehicle and starts fucking with all the electrics, the song begins to distort and slow down into this creepy rendition of itself. Almost like a YTP. Thus, this jarring, slowed-down version of an ordinary pop song becomes this effective new horror score. And again, not only does this sound creepy, but it's also a direct indicator of danger, as mentioned before. It's just a very intentional, clever, multifunctional use of a soundtrack, and we need to appreciate that. Another objective component to the filmmaking that plays a huge role in the storytelling is the sound design. The vast majority of this film takes place within a wide open ranch, and this obviously greatly affects how everything sounds. Noise is constantly being reverberated about the space, and oftentimes things are very echoey. Conversations are had over long distances, ominous sounds are heard from afar, and the way in which the sound design captures this audio experience is precise. It all works to give the movie a very distinct identity purely on an audible level.
Hey, I wanted to invite you to our new family live show!
Regardless of whether or not any of this was intentional or just happenstance, these choices do add to the eeriness of what's being presented. Whether it be OJ hearing Ricky's presentation at night over the way, or the sound of the distant, creepy, distorted music. This conversation is all the more weird and awkward because of the echo and long distance.
Hey there!
Hey! You can stay right there, though!
Sure!
And this moment is all the more macabrely funny being heard from far away. The sense of position and volume of all of the sounds is also heavily emphasised, particularly pertaining to the scenes where you can hear the shifting pitches of the screaming victims from inside the saucer as it drifts through the sky. It's an authentic and immersive utilisation of the expansive setting. The fact that the noise is constantly changing, getting louder and quieter and distorting in different ways, makes the moment all the more haunting. You remember the specific sounds of those screams. And then you hear these strange popping sounds coming from within, and you're just left to wonder what the hell is going on inside there. Your imagination can run wild with all kinds of bizarre images. That's another thing the sound design does, it hits you with noises that you don't expect. Hearing a balloon-like popping sound coming from a supposed predator throws you off in a really uncanny way. What a perverse sound to use for an animal's digestion, a truly alien sound. Lastly, on the objective qualities, the use of colour deserves some recognition. It might not be as purposeful as the sound design or score, but purely on a cinematographic level, it's really well done. There are a lot of matching colours in various shots that make for scenes that are very pleasing to the eye. Never do the colours being used become overbearing, it's the perfect amount, the perfect level of saturation. This scene in particular comes to mind with lots of greens. It draws your attention to how meticulous and thought out the colour palette is. Nope is strangely a very colourful movie despite it being a horror, which is typical of Jordan Peele to make a marriage of carnival wonder and sinister threat. The clothes that the characters wear make them pop out in an almost comic book fashion, but again, it's never over the top. Just on an aesthetical level, it's nice to look at. I like OJ's light blue t-shirt that he rocks for most of the film because being such a chill guy, that mellow colour is really fitting. And then at the climax he has that bright orange hoodie which you could say he's worn to be more conspicuous so he has an easier time luring the creature. Regardless, the imagery of him on horseback with that bright orange hoodie has stuck in my memory. Oh, and of course Gordy's blood-soaked bright yellow jumper, fuck me. Moving into the elements of filmmaking that are a little more fundamental, I must say that I really love the way Jordan Peele tells a story. The storytelling of Nope, on more or less every front, is seamless and subtle. What I mean by this is that everything we need to know is told to us in a way where we don't notice. There's nothing overt, there's nothing obvious, there's nothing crass. The film opts for the show don't tell rule, and the themes are communicated to us practically. There's minimal exposition where the characters explain to the audience an aspect about themselves that we need to know, or something about the film. It's vague and cryptic, but there is still definitely a concrete message there, plenty for the viewer to engage with. We learn about the characters simply through observing them. They are inherently engaging to follow regardless of what they thematically represent. The best films feed us information whilst always keeping us entertained or stimulated so that we don't know that we're receiving said information. If we take the character OJ, we just see from his demeanour what his personality is like. The way he behaves around the horses indicates to us that he respects animals and isn't as clueless as those around him. Just through him being himself, we see that he is perceptive and has some wisdom about him, and these are important traits that come into play later. Throughout the film, he doesn't say that much, but he's always quick to pick up on things. He has an attention to detail that we can observe in moments like these when he corrects his sister.
Is my great-great-grandfather.
Great.
There's another great.
Later on, he's quick to notice the motionless cloud on the monitor. From that first scene with him in the studio, we get the sense that he isn't necessarily all that worldly and doesn't have the best social skills.
My name is OJ. I think my sister's gonna be here in a minute.
His sister is the one with the gift for the gaff, and that's also demonstrated here.
And I'm Emerald Haywood. I direct, write, produce, act. I do a little singing on the side.
Yet within the horse wrangler's world, which is the world that OJ predominantly inhabits, he is very knowledgeable and knows his shit. He's a streetwise blue-collar worker, so to speak. When he does start to figure things out about the creature later on in the film, it doesn't feel like bullshit because it's feasible that such a person would be able to come to such conclusions. The revelations he has perfectly fit his character. He also has a deep care, respect and appreciation for the horses that he looks after, as opposed to all of the other people we see from the film industry throughout Nope. These are all very respectable traits that make him likeable despite the fact that he is, on the surface, quite a stoic and flat person. Stoicism is hard to pull off in film as it can easily make your character unrelatable, unlikable or cold. But due to all of these subtle traits that we didn't even know we were picking up from him, we admire him, and this makes him a really good character to follow. He's not just a stoic, one-dimensional bore. I actually love how reserved he is in this film because it perfectly ties into his identity as a lesser known part of Hollywood, a lesser known, less appreciated part of film production. He isn't about all this showbiz crap, he's just about doing his particular job properly.
I said we are animal wranglers with Haywood Hollywood horses, and
Daniel Kaluuya nails it, I think he's dope. Similarly, Keke Palmer's character is also an archetype that can oftentimes be trite. Oh, the comedic relief who's loud, silly and annoying. It hardly ever works, yet I like this character.
Haven't seen one of those in a minute.
Fucking praying mantis. That motherfucker better pray I don't ever see him, because if I do, I'm gonna eat him.
Don't get me wrong, I think she only works as well because of how she plays off of Daniel Kaluuya's character, and if it was just her in the movie, then we might have a different story. But she does feel like a real person, definitely flamboyant, but the contrast she has with her older sibling OJ feels really natural. I do love their brother-sister dynamic.
So what now?
I don't know what you want to do.
I'm gonna do whatever you want to do.
Well, I got some work I gotta do. I'm gonna go out.
It's how OJ doesn't have to say that much to her because she'd already know what he was thinking because they're family and they can just pick up on these things. There's this bit where you see OJ get the most animated that he gets throughout the whole film.
Didn't I tell you this motherfucker was gonna come up here with a non-electrical camera? Let's go, boy! Yeah!
And that's it. It's honestly almost jarring, but I like it. It's a rare, genuine spark of enthusiasm and joy that he shares with his sister.
Let's go, boy!
It just feels like something these characters would do. Back to what I was saying about the informative storytelling, take this moment between Emerald and OJ.
Okay, your reflexes are still quick, like, whoa. I ain't mad at it.
I'm watching.
Now on the surface, this is just the two of them pissing around being siblings, but it's cool because it establishes OJ's quick reflexes. This is an aspect of him that will become more important as the film veers into the horror elements. It's a small moment of banter that we think nothing of, but it serves a purpose. In another movie, I could imagine a shitty dumb version of this where the main character saves someone from a piece of falling debris and the guy goes, "Whoa, you have really good reflexes, bro." It's like, whoa, look out! Something's gonna fall! The side character, Angel, is also someone that I can totally believe existing. The kind of guy to be really into his conspiracies and a bit weird.
In studying us, waiting for the perfect time to beam us up and shove metal probes up our fucking asses.
When he sees the open space of the ranch, it prompts him to just scream.
Smell of poor shit and fresh air.
Whoa, 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 whoa.
I like how he's a bit of a loner, a bit of an oddball, like you get the idea that he's got nothing better to do than to help these guys find this alien.
You'll know soon enough.
Cool, cryptic. Fucking dicks.
And that's why he gets so invested in what's going on and you never question his motivations. That's another thing, each of the main characters have their own peculiarities, but these are the exact things that inform their motivations. Again, you never question why any of these people would be so heavily intent on capturing this flying saucer footage. The dialogue between characters is well written and entertaining, almost Tarantino-esque but not too much where it gets gimmicky or tacky.
Yeah, my pops told me about this show. The monkey went crazy or some shit. Can I get fun OJ out this bitch? Cause this whack ass OJ is really making me feel like I'm not loved.
But of course, the star of the sketch is Chris goddamn Katana Escorty, and he is...
It has flair, but it feels natural. The chemistry between Daniel Kaluuya and Keke Palmer is tremendous.
You know I'm broke, right?
Well, use my money. Nigga, shut up. Look.
The scene where they discuss this memory of Emerald's further reinforces all of these different traits of OJ's. OJ corrects her when she misremembers what movie their dad was working on.
It was Scorpion King, actually. It wasn't a Western.
There's that attention to detail again, and the fact that what she appreciates most about this memory is that her brother spotted her looking down from the window. There is that perceptiveness again, that almost intuitive awareness of his surroundings.
Pops never looked up at me. But you did, nigga. Remember?
That's all well and good, you might be saying, but how's the horror, Bacho? After all, this is a horror movie, or at least a spooky movie. The horror is just as solid as everything else. Not only does it do its job right, but it makes for scenes that stay with you. They are almost iconic in a twisted sort of way. There are multiple instances in this film where you are fixated on what is going on. Jordan Peele creates such palpable atmospheres and auras that are ever present throughout the runtime. Even scenes like these, which are meant as fake-outs, are extremely memorable. Within the moment, this is an effectively presented sequence that keeps you glued to the screen. It's all about the subtle movements and shapes in these scenes. You look about the frame searching for something out of the ordinary. You aren't quite sure what you're supposed to be looking at, and that only adds to the suspense. Then something gradually makes itself known by moving slightly and your eyes dart over to it. A second object appears, notice no crass sound effect to jump scare us. The scene is tense enough without it, your eyes were not expecting that object to emerge from that area of the screen. The diegetic sound of the horse machinery acts as the perfect horror score. We have this shot which goes on for so long as the head slowly pokes out. I love this kind of horror. It's the kind that can drag itself out for ages without ever losing the audience's attention. Finally, it cuts to reveal to the audience that this is indeed a prank. It is a jump scare, but only for the character. The character and not the viewers, which is nice because it doesn't try and pull any shit. We are given a close-up view of the supposed creature, and we can quickly deduce that it is a prank as we see it for what it is, a costume. The film doesn't go haha fuck you by throwing in a loud sound effect at that moment. When OJ sees it, he is startled because one would be in this situation. The fake out is revealed to us in a respectful way instead of just opting for a cheap scare. We get the exact same thing with Angel in this next scene. Again, the ruse is revealed to us before Angel. It's just a comedic little moment that isn't trying to be manipulative. Like the scene with OJ, it's about the character being startled, not the audience. And thirdly, we have this praying mantis moment. Okay, that was a bit dumb. More in line with the typical jump scare with that loud sound effect, but then again, it is a praying mantis and maybe that's the joke. Emerald just laughs it off. It's great when characters in horror movies act in accordance with how someone would in real life.
I need to take my ass to bed.
When talking about the horror, we can't not mention the Gordy sequence. Holy shit. I'd love to just gush about it, but I need to go over why the scene works so well, so here goes. First off, the concept isn't anything supernatural, it's something that could have occurred in the real world. It's showcasing how hellishly dangerous a chimp can be, and for that it's drawing from a terrifying truth about the nature of animals. This isn't an alien creature causing this carnage, it's something from our own world. There's that extra level of realness with the fact that this is clearly a nod to the real life incident concerning Travis the chimp. As for the scene itself, it actually hides a lot of the violence and gore. There's an abrupt cut after the first panning shot of the monkey brutalizing the bodies. The shot lasts just long enough for the audience to get a strong impression of the spectacle, and then it cuts away so as not to overindulge in the gruesomeness. In following shots, the presumably goriest aspects of the scene are blocked from view by furniture or other objects. We're again left with only the macabre sound effects which compensate for everything we're not seeing. In fact, the sound effects almost solely carry the scene. It's not as if the scene isn't violent, because it certainly is, there's still plenty of blood on display. It's that it's the perfect balance of imagery and implication. We have lots to draw from visually for our minds to be sufficiently disturbed, yet on top of that we are also given room to imagine even more harrowing sights. We witness it savagely attack a child, which reinforces the animalistic primitiveness of the beast and the mercilessness that comes with that. For as much as we humans have made chimps out to be these cute, silly novelty acts, they are still fucking animals, and animals do shit like this. We'd be wise to remember that.
Down, you sick!
Of course the chimp is CGI and you can easily tell, yet the film at least makes some effort to conceal the imperfections of the special effects with this tablecloth that obscures our vision partially. This especially helps when the chimp moves closer to the camera. On my third rewatch I took note of the people hiding behind the seats in the audience, barely moving an inch. I hadn't even spotted that before. The scene is also made all the more visually unique by the fact that it's a POV shot from the eyes of Ricky. It gives it that on the ground, frantic realism realism. And since we are looking through the eyes of Ricky, when we get this shot when Gordy spots us in our hiding spot, good lord, that cuts through the soul. We've all had that rush of adrenaline feeling when being spotted by someone whilst hiding, probably during a kid's hide-and-seek game. This shot right here thrusts me right back to that very precise experience. It's the way it turns and its head slowly stops when it sees you and becomes all inquisitive. I mean, hats off to the animators. The film actually opens with 2 snippets of this POV shot, ending with the moment Gordy finds you, and it's clear why. Not only is it an intriguing way to start a film about a UFO, but because of how demonstrative the shot is with its imagery, it gives us an initial brief idea of what may have transpired here before cutting away. The amount of subtly placed visual information scattered about the screen is just the right amount to give us a strong but mystifying impression. It's also just a great tone setter for the start of the movie. It tells an entire horror story just in one shot. Then it ends with this blood-stained chimpanzee staring into your soul and you go, holy shit. Nope is quite a bizarre film that you could describe as vague. Operating on this notion, I dub the Gordy sequence as Nope's Eye of the Duck scene. For those of you who don't know, this is a term used by David Lynch to describe the singular scene within each of his movies that perfectly illustrates the thematic identity of said film. The scenes in question are often cited for being seemingly irrelevant to the rest of the plot and story. Yet through abstract storytelling, they convey a central theme of the movie more eloquently or poignantly than any other scene throughout the runtime. It's still not quite time for me to talk about the themes of Nope, but this is how I view the Gordy scene. A seemingly out of place moment that communicates the central tenet or message of the movie more articulately than any other scene from throughout the narrative. It does occur near enough at the midpoint of the movie, so it also feels fitting to call it the centerpiece of the story. If I could choose one highlight scene that conveyed the film's thematic identity best, I'd choose this one. And of course, almost forgot to mention, like a lot of great suspenseful scenes in cinema, there is no music. Oh, hang on guys, wait a minute, I've got some bad news. You see, that gunshot technically qualifies as a jump scare. Game over, the scene sucks now, it's terrible, it's tacky and I hate it. Terrible movie, Jordan Peele's a fucking hack.
Sometimes it sucks. Yeah.
The set piece that transpires not long after the Gordy spectacle is the mass abduction scene. It nicely transitions from one scene to another as we learn that it was adult Ricky who was reminiscing about the Gordy incident. This secondary scene features the death of this character, so to present it right after the scene where we see him miraculously survive a hazardous event is almost evoking a sense of irony. The sense of safety felt by Ricky after that first incident was misplaced, and so he foolishly places himself in way of danger again. The moment of the mass devouring itself is handled with a similar tastefulness to the Gordy scene. It again frequently cuts at pivotal moments, only giving the audience glimpses of the phenomena. However, as with before, what you do see gives you everything you need. The interior shots of the creature are fantastic, I love what they did here. The claustrophobia, the sounds of all the people screaming and groaning. It suggests to you this idea of this slow, agonizing digestion that's all at the same time completely foreign and unfathomable. You don't know exactly what happens to the people. Later all you hear is this sound. And then blood rains out of the object. What happened in between? It's the fact that this is supposedly an organic beast, yet parts of it look man-made. Man-made yet organic is in and of itself an alien concept, because how can such a thing be? This may sound strange, but the feeling I get when watching these scenes is the feeling of a deflating bouncy castle collapsing on top of you as you slowly suffocate. Because make no mistake, that is a terrifying concept, especially when you're a kid. Nope has taken funfair imagery and placed it in a mortifying context. And this precise experience, this precise juxtaposition is something I associate strongly with Jordan Peele. His films are of the horror genre, but it's an uncanny horror that's different to others. He mixes tones that shouldn't work in unison with one another, yet they do. Eerie juxtapositions of jolliness and dread. Silly, unassuming items take on a different meaning. Things that shouldn't be dangerous or scary become just so. A bloodstained chimp dressed in human clothes and a party hat. A balloon-like monster that mercilessly consumes humans. The presence of flimsy tube men in the final dramatic set piece. There are numerous examples. I'm not saying he's necessarily the first to do this juxtaposition, but it's a damn inventive take on horror. Only Jordan Peele could make a balloon be indicative of peril. The exterior of the creature takes on multiple shapes, but for the first half of the movie it resembles your cliche flying saucer, which I think also works. It's been so long since we've seen an alien in film look so classical and simple that it's almost refreshing, and it's still an original take because of what they do with it later. It adds to the uncanniness that we're seeing such an expected and novel portrayal of a UFO. The fact that it's so typical throws you off. The way it drifts across the sky with this strange elegance ties in with the reveal that it is an organic living thing. I fucking love that creature design, man. It's so creative. There's much more I could say on that topic, but I have to leave that for later. This aforementioned uncanniness is inherent to the movie's overall tone. With Get Out, Us, and Nope, Jordan Peele has cemented a very potent cinematic identity that balances all manner of different tones. This film doesn't just get good when the scares come, it's always good, it's always gripping because that tone is never absent. As is the case with filmmakers like David Lynch or Nicholas Roeg, I could watch a Jordan Peele scene about anything and be transfixed. The film takes place within its own world and its quirky, oddball characters feel unique to the setting. I felt a sense of accomplishment on behalf of Jordan Peele as if he'd finally fine-tuned his cinematic voice. Peele's films are also known for their postmodern comedic relief, which is an ingredient in film that has become monstrously oversaturated within the rest of Hollywood. I am sick of postmodern humour, and yet when I watch Nope and hear these lines being said by these characters, it just feels natural because of this sense of identity. This idea that the film just exists within its own world. These lines never felt out of place even when comedy was being injected right in the middle of a very tense scene. I just thought this is a believable way for this character to react, this is what they'd say. Whereas Jordan's previous film Us didn't quite get the balance right, having numerous occasions where the comedy would come in at an inappropriate time and the film's tonal integrity would fall apart, shattering your immersion. The timing was all off, these child characters were making jokes right after an extremely traumatizing bloodbath had just occurred. It completely ruined the tension, whereas in Nope it comes over naturally.
Asking is someone who was in the house when the shit went down.
This fist bump moment could have been jarring or distracting in another film, but here it just fits. And it doesn't do what Us did where it stretches the suspension of disbelief so far that it snaps. I can buy these characters behaving in this manner after what they'd been through. And here, this line is both simultaneously humorous as well as being a relief still. The two tones don't take away from each other, they work in unison.
Nobody fucks with A-Wood, bitch! Nobody! Damn it!
Jordan Peele doesn't just intermix funny moments with scary moments, he fundamentally merges the tones so that scenes are both funny and scary, both humorous and horrifying. It is possible, you know, only the best filmmakers can do it, but every so often you may just get a scene that can evoke two very contrasting emotions from you. The alien design, simple but creepy, flimsy and balloon-like yet deadly. You look at it and you feel a mix of bafflement and fright. A Hollywood chimp going on a murder rampage on the set of a sitcom, again goofy and gory. The scene with the man from TMZ is a moment that I only think could have worked under this very specific tone.
So what, they vanished? You don't believe the flood narrative, do you?
Fuck guys. It's TMZ.
It's ridiculous as this motorcyclist is being presented to us as this villainous threat. Almost not even human, just this menacing, greedy entity.
Oh, I'm sorry. Who are you?
The way he speaks is cartoonish and otherworldly, yet within the context of this world, it doesn't come over as that ridiculous.
Nobody.
You don't look like a nobody to me.
I love how the film takes this opportunity to portray a tabloid journalist in this abstractly malignant fashion. This cynical force of nature, more concept than man. It's quite Lynchian, dare I say. The scene is comedic, but also has slight touches of eeriness too.
This whole valley comes up as blurry on Google Maps. You're really tucked away back here.
The man just effortlessly blends these tones together, and that's no small thing, at least from where I'm sitting. And that's why Jordan Peele's horror feels so memorable and poignant. During the film's finale, the tone veers into the vein of an old western, as emphasised by the music as well as the visuals. Also the fact that they're wrangling an animal. The climax is one of the best demonstrators that this film has a multifunctional tone. We see it shift between exciting action tones, triumphant western tones, dryly comedic tones, and then back to perilous horror tones. The music used in this particular moment isn't trying to be scary, but instead is going for a suspenseful epic vibe, as if what we're seeing is exciting rather than frightening. At this point, the film intends for us to be admiring the spectacle rather than terrified of what's on screen. It's still captivating, just in a different way. Also, at this point in the runtime, we have become accustomed to the look of the creature, and therefore it isn't as ominous to us anymore. Therefore, the film stops trying to scare us with tools that it's already used. The western tone takes over for a while, and we get this cool finale where OJ is riding on horseback across the open plain, all in the process of wrangling a wild beast. Of course, you have the literal western backdrop with Ricky's carnival that comes into play, and the fact that it's all taking place on a ranch. There's this shot which is basically aping the final hero shot of the classic westerns from the 50s and 60s. It's definitely this insane hybrid of horror, western, action, sci-fi, spooky, comedic, epic, dank. There's so many different emotions to be felt, and the film knows just the right moments to inject them. Here, feel excited. Here, smirk a little. Here, feel an awkward sense of maliciousness mixed with absurdity. Here, watch this epic chase scene. Here, be mesmerised by whatever the hell this beautiful thing is. I admire how meticulous and well laid out the plan to lure the alien out is. You could compare it to Jaws once again. There's so much emphasis, both narrative and visual, put on the mechanisms used by the characters as they go about their plans. It's great how they introduce the element of the creature acting as an EMP device, and then later having them use tube men dotted across the ranch to determine where the alien is. There's a ticking clock element as well, as they only have a certain amount of time to get the shot before all of the presses roll up. This is because of the incident at Ricky's showcase that will have attracted a lot of attention. You have the final reveal of the creature in its true form, but even there you can't even be sure. But what the film displays is fascinating, and I can't go into much more detail without veering into the analysis and theory segment of the video. But God, I thought that was beautiful and inventive. Beautiful, psychedelic, intimidating in a manner that we haven't felt throughout the rest of the movie. Just as we've gotten used to the flying saucer, it goes and does this, and draws us in even more. It never gets boring, this film. It keeps building upon itself and taking all of these surprising turns. The film is wrapped up in a way that is noteworthy, and I think the decision to mix the tones like that and give us something completely unconventional for a horror finale was the right move. I was not expecting a scary movie to end in this manner. And again, just that final creature form, man. I don't know what lunatic came up with that, if it was Jordan Peele or someone else, but hats off. Legitimately epic ending. Epic and visually alluring, to say the least. Now it's time to dive into the analysis segment of this video, which should be meaty as the film's subject matter is just so. What I am about to discuss is my own personal speculations, bear that in mind, although there are a few things that I saw online and strongly agreed with, so I'll be pointing those out when they come up. I don't care what anyone else has said about the themes of this film, I don't care if what I say has already been said by someone else, this is my own personal journey, fuck off. These days the second a movie comes out it gets picked apart like fuck and all of the mystery is sapped out of it, so I'm just ignoring all of that. I haven't watched any YouTube analysis videos on it, I've had a few discussions about it with other film fans on social media, but that's more or less it. So with all that said, we're gonna get into this. I'm going to start with the title. Nope. The one-word title conveys the vibe of the film perfectly. It implies a fearfulness with an undertone of levity. Jordan Peele stated that Nope was the reaction he wanted audience members to have when watching his film. The use of this specific negative is partly postmodern, a lot like the comedic relief in the movie. The word carries with it this irreverent and zany affectation. The phrase Nope is almost a meme in pop culture. When you see something undesirable or scary, you go nope in this unserious way. We use it to express fear and revulsion through a joking manner. What's also notable about it is it often appears in skits created by black comics, sometimes whilst they're drawing comparisons between how white people and black people behave in horror settings. Black comedians like to ridicule how white characters in scary movies react to various unsettling things that a black character would know to immediately be wary of. You would have seen at least one of these jokes. It'd be where a white dude was outside an abandoned house and he sees a creepy little girl and he goes, "Hey, how are you doing? Are you okay? Are you safe?" And the joke would be a black dude in that situation would immediately be like, "Yeah, nope, I'm out of here." Nope. The reason I bring this up is because in Jordan Peele's films he incorporates this humorous cultural rift into not just the comedic relief but the actual core narrative. A lot of the plot elements in Get Out are built upon Chris and his friend Rod being highly suspicious of the actions of the weird white characters in the movie. Rod in particular is quick to deduce the rough idea of what is going on, much quicker than perhaps a more naive white character would be in a similar type of movie. The overall commentary being that on average, due to this thing called racism, which in America has been predominantly white on black for the last couple hundred years, African Americans tend to form much more suspicious and skeptical worldviews, particularly pertaining to the trustworthiness of well-seeming white folk. And so the characters we see in Jordan Peele's movies usually possess at least a certain degree of this justified skepticism. It's almost a running undertone throughout his whole body of work. I wouldn't call this a concrete theme, it's more so just a subconsciously interwoven detail. That being said, the decision to title this film Nope ties in with these undertones, and at least in my opinion is a very intentional choice of wording.
Nope. Nope. Fuck this shit.
The way that each of the characters in this film react to this situation they find themselves in does feel quite unique to their cultural ethnicity. I may be overanalyzing, and the film does go on to be about a lot more than just race, but it's definitely one of the sub-themes. However, before I delve into what I think the fundamental themes of Nope are, I would like to initially go over these themes of racial commentary. Now, one of the major themes of this film is Hollywood's mistreatment of animals, yet I also think the film sets some time aside to talk about Hollywood's mistreatment of minorities, in this case, African Americans. In the story of Nope, the fictitious characters of OJ and Emerald are actually descendants of the real-life horse jockey who rode Sally Gardner when the famous Sally Gardner at a Gallop film was shot. As mentioned in the movie, this was one of the earliest examples of multiple images being combined to create the illusion of motion, essentially the birth of film. Here, present at the birth of film is an uncredited black man forgotten to history. Notably, he was a jockey to a wealthy white man named Leland Stanford. The man's true name was allegedly Gilbert Dom, and very little is known about him. In the film, the man's name is Alistair E. Haywood, and he was said to be a black man, which was a creative liberty taken by Jordan Peele. Although given how many African Americans occupied the role of horse jockey back in the 1870s, it really isn't that far-fetched of a concept to imagine that the man photographed here was of black descent. Regardless, this anecdote is brought up in the film to illustrate a relationship, or rather a dynamic, that has existed between African Americans and the filmmaking process since the genesis of cinema. This dynamic being one of partial exploitation, as the jockey here was used for a stunt to create a spectacle and then was largely forgotten about.
I mean, the very first stuntman, animal wrangler, and movie star all rolled into one, and there is literally no record of them.
By using this specific example, Nope is remarking that the exploitation of black people has been a part of movie making since its founding, which is a dreary notion to say the least. If you want, you don't even have to go as far as African Americans. It's the story of the blue-collar underclass being taken advantage of, and Nope is suggesting that this is almost a core tenet of the filmmaking process, as it all stemmed from this example. Literally moments after we hear this anecdote, we are given a non-explicit reincarnation of this paradigm with how OJ is treated on set. The crew treat him like shit, they near enough completely disregard him, they treat him like a prop, they're rude, they seem to have no respect for him.
So I guess we're stuck with Junior over here.
No.
Yeah.
Okay. Fuck.
It's the typical example of the so-called talent treating the help like dirt.
Let's go ahead and spin the horse.
Well, you had said hold, so.
And now I'm saying spin. Let's go.
At the beginning of the scene, it literally cuts from a shot of the Sally Gardner film to inside the studio, further tying these two examples together for comparison. Shot of black man and horse cuts to shot of black man and horse, and they're even positioned in similar ways. The main focal point of this scene, however, isn't the staff's mistreatment of OJ, but their mistreatment of the horse Lucky, who they also view as just an inconsequential prop, an insignificant piece of scenery. As a result, this ends up happening.
What are we doing here? Hey!
They don't respect the animal, they don't respect its nature, and it has a fairly violent outburst that could have seriously injured someone. It's a stark but realistic reminder of what animals are capable of, that they aren't fully under our control. It's easy to forget that they are forces of nature. As humans living in the modern age, we've become way too comfortable with this notion that animals are utterly predictable and complacent. The cast and crew in this scene represent such examples of this hubris. And as was the case for African Americans, the use of the galloping horse also ties animal exploitation to the founding of cinema, with the fact that one of the earliest examples of a motion picture involved forcing a horse to do a stunt. This moment, this scene, is a perfect initial illustration of one of the core messages of Nope. To introduce what the grand themes are, in my eyes, I'd word it like so. It's this cautionary tale about the relationship between filmmaking and natural phenomena, and then by extension a critique or showcase of how human beings have reacted to the very existence of this relationship. How they exploit it in various ways, how they think they can control it, how they claim ownership over it, how they misinterpret the meaning of it, how they stand in awe of it. On the base narrative level, this idea of natural phenomena mainly pertains to animals. Animals are the key focal point of the story. Each chapter is literally named after one of the main animals that play a role in the plot. The movie opens with striking snippets of the chimpanzee massacre scene. Right before this, we are shown this quote to the sound of the monkey beating on the Gordy's home cast and crew. "I will cast abominable filth at you, make you vile, and make you a spectacle." Which pretty much just says it outright. Throughout the film, we are shown different instances of humans trying to make spectacles out of animals and in the process mistreating them. There's Lucky on the Hollywood set at the beginning, the Gordy's home incident where the crew are trying to turn a chimp into a silly novelty, and Ricky's showcase where he attempts to commodify the UFO. Each occasion is very similar to the other in that they all involve human ignorance towards a natural living creature and all end with some kind of mishap. The Lucky example, of course, being the least catastrophic of the three by quite a margin. We are shown all of these scenes of different animals being poorly treated, and the film rarely ever explicitly draws comparisons between them. The messages are conveyed with minimal dialogue, and the film expects us to notice the similarities and connect the thematic dots ourselves. There are a few scenes where OJ outright likens the aliens to the horses, but it's never overt and it's always subtle. It never crosses the threshold of over-explaining things. It's the perfect level of ambiguity where we have a complete experience watching the film, yet we are left with plenty to ponder over. The only exposition that occurs are lines that feel natural coming from the characters anyway.
It's an animal. It's territorial. You don't look at it unless you want its attention.
Nope doesn't just stop at this exploitation of animals idea, instead it becomes an exploration into the idea of natural phenomena as a whole. One of the most memorable lines from OJ is, "What's a bad miracle? Have we got a word for that?" This film features a lot of perverse events and coincidences that occur as freak acts of nature, incredible rarities or oddities that befall certain characters. The shrapnel rain at the start and the coin that lodges perfectly in the centre of the father's head, the Gordy incident and the shoe that rests idyllically pointing upwards, and of course the very emergence and presence of the alien itself. These things that appear to us humans as magical happenings yet are inherently deadly. It all points to this idea that just because something is astonishing and wonderful, that doesn't mean that it's in some way benevolent to those who stand in awe of it. You may attribute a sense of sentimentality or profundity towards a certain event or coincidence, and that may lead you down a foolhardy path. These bizarre, incredible occurrences, much like an animal, do not adhere to your idealized version of reality. They are unruly and chaotic, and if you aren't careful, they may kill you. The character of Ricky is a shining example of such idiocy. His entire being is defined by what happened on the day Gordy went berserk. His personal interpretation of the catastrophe appears to inform all of his decision making. He looks back on the event with an absurd sort of reverence. The image of the shoe miraculously perched upwards is burnt into his memory as a divine occurrence. He took a preposterous coincidence to mean something of great significance and is unable to see the incident for the horrendous tragedy that it was. He literally keeps a shrine to the event with the shoe behind a glass case positioned at the exact same angle. In that first scene with him, we see him jump at the opportunity to tell Emerald the story.
Yo, wait a minute.
So, that... OJ, have I shown you this?
He comes across almost sociopathic for how enthusiastic he is about the whole affair, living in this perpetual denial of how awful it truly was. We see more about his character when he describes the fictitious SNL skit of the Gordy incident to the main siblings.
Gordy, Catan, goes off.
How animated he gets whilst talking is a clear indicator that he has this strange obsession for things that he perceives as spectacular. If you listen to the words he uses when he's describing Chris Kattan's performance as Gordy in the sketch,
he is a force of nature. He is killing on that stage.
Is yet another example of him reveling over the extraordinary, and the choice of words here is extremely purposeful. A force of nature, a miracle, a wonder. During the scene, it abruptly cuts to the blood-stained face of child Ricky hiding under the table.
Killing on that stage.
A reminder of the nightmarish reality of the thing he's talking about, which he is actively repressing. The core aspect that cements Ricky's delusion is the fact that Gordy spared him. It's clear that Ricky thinks that this was because of some deeper connection he had with the chimp, when in actual fact it was more than likely a result of him not looking Gordy directly in the eyes, which is the same rule attributed to the alien and the horses. It was dumb luck that spared Ricky and nothing more. Yet he goes on telling himself otherwise, probably out of some deranged coping mechanism to make sense of a mortifyingly traumatic event from childhood. That interaction he had with Gordy, perhaps he felt he had a connection with the beast in that moment, a mutual understanding with the chaotic whims of nature. Perhaps from that point onward he believed he was predestined to meet with the extraordinary again, and that's what he thought was happening when the alien came. It should be noted that unlike the producers of the Gordy's Home show, Ricky's sole motivation wasn't just to commodify the UFO. It ran deeper than that for him. The mistake that the showrunners of Gordy's Home made was not respecting the animal and thinking themselves above it, whereas I believe Ricky stood in reverence of both Gordy and the UFO. However, that was also the mistake. He still felt a misplaced sense of ownership over the creature because of this imagined connection to the divine. Imagining yourself to be of an understanding with the unknowable forces of nature is a great mark of hubris, and this is what gets Ricky killed.
He got caught up trying to tame a predator. You can't do that. You gotta enter an agreement with one.
To better understand the themes of Nope, you have to view all of these aspects more abstractly. The coincidences, the accidents with the animals themselves, the emergence of the UFO, these are all works of natural phenomena. They all stem from a force that is greater than humanity, a force that we think we can control but ultimately are at the mercy of. These phenomena are beautiful, astonishing things, but they are also dangerously unpredictable. They adhere to their own rules. Respecting that fact is the first step towards successfully navigating these phenomena in a way that increases your chances of survival. At multiple times throughout this video, I've talked about the character OJ with regards to his unique likability, wisdom, and clairvoyance. Additionally, he has a deep care and respect for the horses on his ranch.
Send old jean jacket, some fresh horses, and golden hour and see what happens.
Horse people.
Ultimately, the key detail that fundamentally defines him is the fact that he respects these higher forces of nature and recognizes their sheer deadliness. Ricky also respects them in a way, but then also goes on to romanticize them while being blind to the danger. It should also be noted that it's not nature itself that Ricky respects, as he was more than happy to sacrifice Lucky in order to lure the creature in. Rather, it's these monumental entities that he stands in awe of. OJ sees these phenomena for what they are. He doesn't attach anything else onto them other than the truth. He doesn't glamorize them, he doesn't idolize them, much like how he is with everything else in his life. He is matter of fact about the situation. And this is what leads to OJ and Emerald being triumphant at the climax of the film. The fact that OJ asks the question, do we have a word for a bad miracle, right after catching his first glimpse of the UFO indicates that he was immediately aware of the implications of this thing. The odd thing about this question is that there isn't really a word for bad miracle that quickly comes to mind. As short-sighted humans, we only perceive these extraordinary things as divine happenings, and so therefore we haven't felt the need for a negative word for such a thing. Did it never occur to us that these things could be malicious or hazardous? A 1 in a million coincidence may befall you, but this does not mean that you're in any way blessed or shielded from the harsh unruliness of reality. A person who miraculously survives a car crash may think themselves immune to tragedy when this is in fact a fallacy. The story of Nope is ultimately the story of wrestling with the natural elements. In particular, it's about this group of people attempting to make a spectacle out of a miraculous occurrence by way of documenting it on video. Their goal is to obtain the Oprah shot, a lightning in a bottle recording of an alien object that will propel them to a significant degree of fame and possible wealth. They want to capture something incredible on film that will turn out to be a cultural sensation. The final set piece plays like a film crew attempting to pull off an impossible stunt for a giant blockbuster movie. Ambitious filmmakers all throughout history have sought either financial success or artistic accomplishment by way of creating something monumentally brilliant, capturing lightning in a bottle. The extremes that some of these directors go to achieve their goals cannot be understated. Whether it be Stanley Kubrick psychologically torturing his actors to harness fantastic performances out of them, or Tom Cruise repeatedly risking his life for an insane stunt. There's a notion or belief that a truly jaw-dropping spectacle demands a certain degree of commitment and dedication. Sometimes severity is the price we pay for greatness. The greater the difficulty of filming it, the greater the spectacle will be.
Thank you all very much for your help, guys.
All of these factors make the process of creating great cinema a vastly dangerous endeavour, and that's what I think Nope is trying to highlight. When you set out to make a truly grandiose piece of cinema, you enter into an arduous wrestling match with the very laws of nature. You have to manage an infinite array of challenges and obstacles and contend with all manner of uncontrollable elements. For how chaotic and sprawling these big film productions get, it's honestly miraculous that any of these films turn out as coherently as they do. When it gets to this level of complexity and intensity, the act of successfully making a film borders into something mystical.
You make the cinematically impossible possible. We're looking for the impossible shot.
Documentary filmmaking is arguably all the more colossal of a craft. This is the process of braving the untamed reality of the world and bending it to your will so you can make a work of art out of it. Particularly with wildlife filmmaking, nature is the spectacle, the sole provider of the awe and amazement that you are seeking. Since your art is so directly tied to the whims of nature, an odd sort of relationship develops between the filmmaker and the elements.
He got caught up trying to tame a predator. You can't do that. You gotta enter an agreement with one.
A wise filmmaker has to respect and be privy to the unyielding wildness of nature if they expect to receive its gifts.
But as a filmmaker, sometimes things fall into your lap, which you couldn't expect, never even dream of.
Hi, Spirit.
There is something like an inexplicable magic of cinema.
Hi, Spirit. Hello, baby.
In Nope, OJ exhibits the ideal characteristics of a documentary filmmaker who is attempting to video a deadly animal, and this is why he is successful in capturing the Oprah shot. He and his companions prove themselves worthy to be granted with the spectacle as they best this awesome creature. This creature that is a living embodiment of the wonder of cinema. Its very core bears an unmistakable resemblance to a film screen. The film further promotes this allegory in the opening sequence when it shows the gallop shot appear within the creature's core. The alien's final form is this Peacockian marvel designed to mesmerize those who look upon it. We are directly told that it preys on those who look at it, so therefore its hunting strategy involves luring people in by taking on exquisite forms. The UFO, through its visual look, its behaviours, its very existence, is the pure embodiment of a lightning in a bottle spectacle, the ultimate personification of the terrifying monumentality and mysticism of filmmaking. It is referred to as a spectacle at multiple points in the movie.
My family and I bore witness to an absolute spectacle.
As is the Gordy disaster, which you could also liken to the alien.
It was a spectacle. People are just obsessed.
Spectacle is a word that is often used to describe a movie, particularly an impressive one. At numerous times we see the saucer trying to tempt people into gazing upon it so it can absorb them. It seems it can only feed on those who stand in some kind of awe of it. Like a work of cinema, its survival is completely dependent on our attention. It needs people to see it, to marvel at it. It's never directly stated, but you get the sense that it's only able to consume people who look at it. As soon as we ignore it, it loses power, again, like a movie. Its movements in the final stages of the climax echo the characteristics of a predator attempting to bedazzle its prey. When the characters wise onto this aspect and know to be careful where they look, we start to get a lot of shots where the UFO is in frame but out of focus, indicating a refusal to look in its direction, to not succumb to the temptation. The fact that it's so prominent in the frame yet not strictly focused on makes it all the more ominous. During the film, you can observe how the various other characters react in different ways to the UFO and face unique outcomes as a result. The journalist who arrives has a helmet on that is essentially one big mirror. He's going into a situation where you need to be careful where you cast your gaze, and he's essentially wearing one giant eyeball that casts its sight in every direction. In other words, he's fucked.
Oh my god! My camera! I need my camera!
I also like how his helmet resembles the spherical mirror that freaked Lucky out on set at the start of the movie. Both site-related items that instigated disaster. Antlers Holst, who is also present at the finale, deviates from OJ ever so slightly with his personal logic. He does respect the beast, he is aware of the danger, yet he ends up perishing whilst trying to get the perfect shot. You could interpret this as foolhardiness, or you could view it as a form of suicide or sacrifice. Right before his death, he utters these words.
It's gonna be alright, Angel. We don't deserve the impossible.
To me, this indicates a somber acceptance of that which you can't control. He admires this natural entity so much that perhaps what he does here is sacrifice himself as way of paying tribute to it whilst also conceding to its almightiness. I accept that you are above us all. He did obtain the Oprah shot right before this, and perhaps he didn't see himself worthy of its majesty, worthy of the spectacle.
We don't deserve the impossible.
During this video, I've talked a lot about Daniel Kaluuya's character and not that much about Keke Palmer's character. One might view her motivations to be a little more rooted in greed or exploitation. However, I believe that throughout the course of the movie, she undergoes her own unique journey as she learns a valuable lesson. It's definitely a subbeat that's a little off to the side, but it pertains to what she should be devoting her attention to. In the beginning, she starts off with the singular desire to capture the Oprah shot, whether it be for fame or riches, is largely inconsequential. I wouldn't call her motivations here cynical necessarily, as I think both her and OJ are primarily concerned with the financial stability of their late father's farm. As the narrative advances, it's made clear to Emerald that fame and attention aren't everything, and more pressingly, aren't a healthy end goal to have in life. When on the phone with documentary filmmaker Antlers Holst, he warns her of this very thing with this line.
This dream you're chasing, the one where you end up at the top of the mountain, all eyes on you. It's the dream you never wake up from.
I want to highlight this particular phrase, all eyes on you. The film script places heavy emphasis on these themes of viewership and attention. Words like spectacle and viewers arise during pivotal lines.
We are being surveilled by an alien species I call the viewers.
This abstract concept of observing is also thematically present in the flashback scene of OJ looking up and viewing Emerald from down at the farm. Not only viewing her, but seeing her, acknowledging her, respecting her. Emerald cherishes this memory because in that moment she felt seen, understood, respected, even loved. This is the kind of attention and devotion you should strive for, not the arbitrary mass attention that comes with fame and notoriety. There's never any dialogue about this, but as the scenes go by, Emerald slowly lets go of this unhealthy fixation with mass attention, and learns to appreciate and prioritize the kind of attention that truly matters. The attention her loving brother pays her, this warm, cherishing, personal vein of visual acknowledgement. Nope ends with two reverse shots of the siblings looking upon each other as the triumphant music swells. I see you and you see me. This was a happy ending where the main characters came out of their situation both successful and enlightened.
Okay, your reflexes are still quick, like whoa. I ain't mad at it.
I'm watching.
Welcome, this is the bonus points segment. When editing together movie clips for videos, I often pick up on details that I didn't notice at the time of writing the script, so we're going to use this extra segment to mention them. First off, a small detail, but something that I really wanted to make note of, the praying mantis that appears on the surveillance camera at night. A small goofy moment may be, but this very occurrence does tie in with these themes of nature being unpredictable and random. The mantis's emergence is an inconvenience to our main characters and one that they have little control over. Praying mantises are arguably quite rare too, so you could dub this as a natural phenomena or at the very least a strange coincidence. It shows up here and now of all times or places. This was a miracle of misfortune for our protagonists. At the beginning of the film, OJ does not look at the film crew when he's making his announcement. This is obviously down to his introverted demeanour, but symbolically this mirrors how he behaves around Jean Jacket later on in the film. He does not gaze at the spectacle of the alien to ensure he doesn't become bedazzled by a malignant force, whereas in this initial scene he perhaps avoids eye contact with the audience to remove himself from the allure of the attention the crew are giving him. He doesn't want to catch a taste of fame or notoriety, and the attention he's getting from these people anyway is vacuous and non-wholesome, and he is right to reject it. Of course, his sister, who initially yearns for fame and attention, has no trouble making eye contact with the viewers. I mentioned earlier how the film places a thematic emphasis on eyes and attention, and so this VR headset shot also ties in with these ideas. These headsets are essentially a movie screen that's wrapped all around you. Emerald and Angel are completely enveloped in spectacle, while the intuitive OJ remains undistracted. The idea of the final set piece being an allegory for a film production is further reinforced by the fact that OJ is literally wearing a film crew jumper for the whole sequence. A sweet detail detail that complements the OJ and Emerald bonding narrative is that OJ names the alien after Jean Jacket, a former horse of their father's who was supposed to be the first horse that Emerald trained, but that never came to be. In doing this, OJ indicates to Emerald that he acknowledges her pain over this memory and truly does care for her. It's almost as if he's saying, without words, "Don't worry, I was listening and I understand." And it's also him paying tribute to the alien itself, as he's likening it to a horse, which is an animal that he respects and appreciates. And this isn't really a secret theme or anything, but I just love the part where OJ sees the flyer for the Star Lasso experience and is just immediately set on rescuing Lucky, despite the fact that he no longer legally owns him. It's just badass, like, get in there, go get Lucky, go rescue him.
Where are you going?
I'm gonna get lucky.
Finally, the film makes prominent use of certain Western motifs. Both Jupe and OJ can be seen adopting the iconography of the classic cowboy archetype as they go about their attempts to best the alien. The significance here is that the Western hero, typically depicted as a man sitting proudly atop a horse, is a universal symbol of man's mastery over nature, a timeless representation of humanity's dominion over the elements. To ascend to a position of such esteem, you must prove yourself to be truly worthy. In the beginning, it's OJ's father who is depicted as the master of nature, as he handsomely and effortlessly sits atop his horse. This is a man who has entered into an agreement with the elements and understands them. OJ's personal character journey is one of coming to an understanding with nature himself and rising to the role that his father previously occupied. As OJ grows as a person throughout the film and learns the lessons that he does, he winds up proving himself worthy to be the new master of nature. And this is why the final shot of him echoes the classic Western hero shot. Through his wisdom and courage, he has ascended to this position of power. What's funny is Jupe also tried to harness the power of the cowboy archetype both in his costumes and the theme of his park, but it was his impure convictions and his foolhardiness that caused him to fail. His use of the Western iconography was crass, insincere, and capitalistic. For this, when he does face up to the alien, he is literally dehatted and thus emasculated. He was not worthy. Fucking idiot. Also, the alien bears a striking resemblance to a cowboy hat, but I can't claim that was something I spotted because it was pointed out to me by someone else, but I completely agree with that sentiment. I think it does tie in with everything that I've been saying as well. I really wanted to mention it, but it's not really my point, so I can't really, it's a weird place I'm in, A detail that partially contradicts all of my theories about the alien being the spectacle is this line from Ricky where he refers to it or them as the viewers.
By an alien species, I call the viewers.
Instead of thinking that he is observing the alien, he thinks the alien is observing him, which would be the wrong assumption, but would fit in with his inflated sense of destiny. Not only is he wrong about the dynamic shared by the alien and the humans, he thinks that the object is a ship in the expected sense and that there are multiple human-sized aliens. We see this belief promoted through the merchandise he creates of these alien creatures. These are purely his own invention. He is wrong in his assumptions. He's wrong to think that the object is a ship, wrong to think that there are multiple aliens, and wrong to dub them as the viewers. Another detail that was pointed out to me by a side-by-side comparison that I saw online is that the design of his make-believe aliens bear a striking resemblance to the Panavision film cameras that were on the set of Gordy's home. These cameras that were used to survey Ricky as a kid, adult Ricky has subconsciously likened to the alien, which he believes to not be a singular entity but a whole array of beings that are all surveying him. In other words, he sees them as another audience. He sees them as cameras/conduits to transmit his person to a whole host of spectators. What an egotistical dick! The alien plushies that are shown literal moments after Ricky refers to the alien as the viewers are even arranged in a studio audience fashion, you could say, but I might be overanalyzing. The true alien design, however, looks like a balloon or a kite, flimsy man-made objects that humans sell as gimmicky sources of entertainment. Since this is what a lot of people in the the movie perceive the alien as, it's only fitting. People are constantly trying to turn it into a novel carnival attraction. Its very design personifies these themes of crass commodification and cheap entertainment. The main cast of characters unintentionally make a kite out of it when it sucks up that string of party banner, making it look absurd, just like that party hat did with Gordy. We're making a mockery of these things almost, forcibly shaping them into idiotic commodities. It's also no coincidence that the interior of Jean Jacket looks like a circus tent or a bouncy castle, further evoking the likeness of a carnival setting or a fun fair. In fact, this shot almost feels like watching a theme park ride. And finally, balloons play a vital role in the alien's penultimate downfall. The tube men used to monitor its movement are another form of balloon, but most pressingly, it's a very intentional thing that the alien perishes by way of a balloon popping. An ironic, mocking, ridiculing finishing touch. A balloon pop is what incited the Gordy massacre, and here it concludes the life of this otherworldly animal. Despite the fact that the characters were acting in self-defense, and despite the fact that it was a predator, it's almost bittersweet to see the alien die, as the manner in which it happens is a disservice to its elegance. But in saying that, I fear I've made the same deadly errors that Ricky did. Throughout this review, I've marvelled at this exquisite and inventive creature design just as the film warned me not to. I've stood in awe of the spectacle, not just with this creature or with this film, but with cinema as a whole. This channel is a continual celebration of the various works of fiction that I've digested throughout the years. I have revered over them and broadcast my reverence to you. Like, what have I done? I'm just as bad as Dupe with his presentation. Like, oh, look at this work by Kubrick. Wow, let's all just revere it, shall we? What's the message I myself should take from this film? Is there a danger in experiencing escapism? And if so, what does that look like? How does that manifest? I suppose anything that's capable of putting you in a trance-like state of immersion is something that we should always be partially wary of. A power too potent to exist without consequence. The boundless imagination of storytelling, a terrifying force of nature in its own right. Oh, thank goodness. Oh, I'm so tired. We're finally at the end of this video. I think I've cracked it. I'm satisfied with my analysis, so I don't care what you think. Again, it's just my interpretation. I'm not trying to lay down the law as to what everyone should think. Like, this is the exact way we should think about this movie. This is the exact dogma that this film is promoting. You're free to disagree with me. That is your prerogative. A final query I wanted to discuss was whether this film was good purely on an entertainment level, removed from all of the analysis and deeper meaning stuff. With films like these that are full of messages and allegory, there is a worry that it will only be meaningful to those interested enough to keep revisiting it to figure it out. Figure out the true meaning, get the full interpretation. I think a film should be stimulating regardless of whether you understand it or not, or care to understand it. For me, Nope meets this standard. I'd say the intrigue and mystique alone carries it. The premise, the acting, the unique creature design, the creepiness, the technical filmmaking. It's all great. For those who don't care about hidden meanings, it serves as a fun, suspenseful, horror sci-fi thriller. Although Nope is not as accessible as Get Out, I'd still maintain that it is Jordan Peele's best work. Us had promise but broke down with imperfect injections of comedy. Get Out is solid and rewatchable, yet it lacks the fine-tuned style of Nope. Nope is a film made by someone who has mastered his craft, or at the very least, greatly expanded it. The cinematography, the colour palette, the score, the performances, the themes, the structure, the editing, the tone, all work in unison to create this modern cult classic. Thanks for watching.